Previous podcasts I did on various principles, the likes of honor and chivalry and respect. I don't think I did one on respect, but tonight I want to focus on one principle, and it's called loyalty. Loyalty is highly prized in every organization you can think of. Loyalty is something that a lot of people, a lot of organizations want and demand. But what exactly is loyalty, and why is it so well sought after? Well, loyalty is defined as one's willingness to take on values and principles of either a person, an event, a person, an organization, or a philosophy. And examples of loyalty would be loyalty to the wife, loyalty to your company, or loyalty to your government, and loyalty to your religion. And what is that? Basically, loyalty is when you willingly commit yourself to following the values and principles. You form a contract with that person or that organization or that philosophy. And the idea is you have to practice that contract and you keep going. And you have to say to yourself, well, what are the benefits of that? Why what is a healthy contract? What would be a healthy loyalty to get into? And for that, firstly, you have to be willing to commit, to get involved, to put yourself out there. So you have to have willingness first if it's a healthy contract. Secondly, there has to be benefits. You have to see the reward at the end of the day. There's no point pushing yourself, and not exactly knowing what you're going to get out of it in the end. And finally, that's, yeah, rewards, framework. You need a framework to work with. You need to have rules, or not just rules, but guidelines at least. A healthy contract would have guidelines so you can follow it and you know how far you have to go with it. And the benefits of being loyal means that you get rewarded every time you put yourself out there, every time you put in a commitment, every time you put yourself out there. The challenges, though, are that those loyalty in itself is a challenge, and it starts off small. You start working through those small issues, and furthermore, you grow into those situations where you find you have to commit yourself more. You have to put yourself out there more, and the danger there is how much is too much. And in a healthy relationship or a healthy contract, the other parties will realize that you might not be capable to take those tasks on yet, but you will grow into them, or you will evolve into that by putting yourself out there. So a healthy contract means that people give you the time and the space to figure things out for yourself so you can progress to the next stage. When we think of examples of loyalty, particularly from a military point of view, military examples bring out the starkest examples of the importance of loyalty, and none more so than in the current conflict in Ukraine and Russia. When you consider things from the Ukrainian side, before, after the Russians had annexed Crimea, the Ukrainian people were, they were so divided, that they didn't openly fight to get the Crimea back in 2014. There was a lot of people on the fence. A lot of people considered the Ukrainians and the Russians were really just one people, the Ruski Mir concept. And then when the Russians did invade their country, even still, the Ukrainian people, there was a large proportion of people out there that were still pro-Russian, that still believed in Ruski Mir, and they actually resented the idea of Ukrainian resistance to the Russians. And However, as time went on and the war crimes started piling up, more and more Ukrainians began to realize that a liberated Ukraine is far, far better than one that's controlled by the Russians. And as time went on, we're now in a situation where there's well over 1 million Ukrainians who are in various processes of starting out their training, getting involved in the fight, and working towards liberating Ukraine, be it at government level, at the army level, defense level, and attack level. Everybody is shouting Slava Ukraine, and they're all shouting in unison. They all want a free Ukraine from the Russians. And then when you take it from the Russian side of it, um, before 2014, the Russians, they all believed in Putin. They all were loyal to Putin. Indeed, Putin was smarter than a chess player. He bet Eddie Kasparov. He threw his armies into Georgia, into Chechnya and Libya, and throughout the world he was feared. And a lot of people thought, yes, he's a strong Russian leader, and that's the way to have it. However, when he continued, when his conflict started back 2 years ago, things started to go awry. His generals, Shoigu, Gerasimov, Prigozhin, and that Chechnyan guy, I can't think of his name, they all swore loyalty to Putin at the beginning, and they says, we'll conquer Ukraine for you, and we'll push the Russian agenda onto the world table. And as time went on, those people turned against Putin, or actively worked against him, and so far some of them have died or are in the process of dying. On top of that, the Russian army, which started off thinking that they were invincible, are now not so, and they are questioning their loyalty. However, it's creating a strange kind of fatalism in the ranks. The latest example being the battle in Adivka. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was a report saying that there was roughly 100,000 Russians getting ready for another attack into somewhere in the northeast part of Ukraine. And only in the last week or so, we have seen wave after wave of armor and infantry trying to take the small town of Adivka. And the phrase that's being used is meat waves. It is so bad. There's tens of thousands of Russians dead on the battlefield, and there's recently been a report that up to 1 million Russian soldiers are injured or knocked out of the fight in total. And currently the death rate, or the number of deaths in the Russian army, is standing very close to 200,000 that we know of. There is a fatalistic loyalty in the people of Russia now. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago where an ordinary Russian citizen said basically, we're trapped. We're stuck in this. We have no choice but to promote war in our society. We have to keep warring until the war is over. And it's fatalistic. And the reason for that fatalistic loyalty, I believe, is the fact that Putin has made himself the only ruler, top dog, top boss in the entire Russian nation. There's no figureheads out there to oppose him. And now the people have come to a conclusion that if Putin was to disappear for any sort of reason, there will be pure anarchy in Russia. And that is indeed the case, because I remember back when the USSR fell, the Russian mafia practically ran that country. I knew a friend of mine who was Russian. He told me that like you couldn't drive down the road without having to pay protection money, or even businesses had to pay protection money in their own towns. So that's the problem here, and that's not going to be sorted until after Ukraine has liberated their country. That's all I have to say on loyalty. Take care.